This story is a little excerpt from a big, huge book called Lad, a Dog. And this is in our second grader section over there on the shelf. And second graders and third graders, fourth and fifth graders too. As soon as the public library opens, if you would like to go and get some A to Z Mysteries by Ron Roy, those would be great for you to be reading. And that's the biggest club that we have for third, fourth, and fifth grade. Second grade, you'll be working on them next year. And all you have to do is just keep a list of the books that you've read and then bring that back to me in the fall whenever we do get back to school. But Lad, a Dog. Now, I want to read you a little thing in the back of this. This is about the author. It says, the famous collie, so this is a true story, lived with the talented animal and nature writer Albert Payson Terhune and his wife in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. The place was a wooded estate called Sunnybank. So this Albert Terhune wrote this story about his collie dog. And it says a series of magazine stories about Lad were published during World War I. So this was a long, long time ago. The stories were very popular. After the war, the stories were published in a book. The book about Lad sold very well. The brave, loyal dog became so popular that people would drive to Sunnybank uninvited to see where Lad lived. The author, Mr. Terhune, was finally forced to put up gates to keep all the people out. So people loved this dog so much they wanted to go see where he lived. Mr. Terhune went on to write stories about other dogs, but he was always best known for the tales he told about the collie. There was no other dog like Lad, and the author said it well in his dedication of the book. This book is dedicated to the memory. Now, if it says to the memory, that means that the dog has passed away. To the memory of Lad, thoroughbred in body and soul. And this little part is called Lad to the Rescue. Many years ago, there lived a purebred collie, and there's the picture of the collie, and they are so smart. That's a Lassie dog, and we've seen Lassie on TV, haven't we? A purebred collie named Lad. Lad was born to win blue ribbons. The ruff around his neck was deep and snowy white. This is that part right there. His chest was wide and proud, but something about Lad was more important than ribbons. There was wisdom in Lad's eyes. In his heart was courage. His master knew this from the start. Lad had greatness in him. He lived with his master and mistress in a big house in the country. Lad loved the mistress dearly, but he lived to obey the master. The master's word was law. Splash! Life at the place, or at their house, was wonderful. On hot summer days, Lad jumped in the lake and rolled in the cool marsh. There were acres and acres of woods. Lad ran freely and happy. One spring, house guests arrived. Lad did not like guests. They always wanted to pat the big collie and shake his paw. So evidently Lad didn't want to be patted and shake their paw and shake his paw. The law said that Lad had to be polite to all the guests. The law was the master. He had to be polite to all the guests on the place. So he tried to stay out of their way. Lad stood back that spring morning as he watched the guests arrive. The lady seemed nervous, and the child in her arms looked sickly. The truth was, the child had been very ill. When the illness finally went away, the little girl could no longer walk. The poor thing was thin and pale. Lad's heart went out to her. When the child saw Lad that first day, her weak arms reached for him. "Keep that dog away! He will hurt her!" the mother cried. "Never," said the mistress calmly. Lad would not harm a hair on her head. In fact, Lad adored the child. After the first day, no one could keep the two apart. They spent hours and hours together. "Doggy, I love you," the child would say, and Lad would let her pull his head close for a kiss. Look at this one. Now, Lad is a boy, okay? Lad let the child make him look silly, too. He let her dress him up. He acted in her plays that she put on. Lad stayed with the child while she ate her meals. He even slept outside her door at night. He was protecting her, wasn't he? The weeks passed. Little by little, the child grew stronger. Then came a hot day in June. The mother took the child outside to wheel her down to the pond below the house. Lad went along, but he was not happy. Lad knew there was danger down by that hill. He tried to stop the child's wheelchair. "Out of the way, Lad," the mother said. There was a breeze by the pond. "We shall be cooler here," the child's mother said. She settled the daughter on the grass. Behind the girl was a low stone wall. Lad was worried. He knew that snakes lived in the wall. He wished his master would come. The master would warn the guests about the snakes, but the master wasn't home. At last, they heard a car coming up the long driveway. The master and mistress were returning from the post office. Lad's eyes grew brighter. His tail thumped against the blanket. "The mail's here," the child's mother said. "I will go see if there's anything for us. I will be right back." When the mother, you see that picture? When the mother brushed against the wall, loose stones rattled down inside. The stones fell on a copperhead snake that was sleeping. The snake woke up, and he slowly oozed out of the wall into the sunlight. Lad saw the snake, and he stood up. Collies are not easily frightened, but all collies are afraid of poisonous snakes. Lad saw the copperhead, and he felt sick with fear. He wanted to run away. The copperhead flicked its tongue. It crawled closer to the child. "Bad snake!" the frightened girl cried, but she couldn't run away. She couldn't move her legs. See the snake right there by her? Suddenly, she threw her picture book at the snake. The book missed the reptile, but the copperhead thought it was being attacked. In a flash, the snake pulled its head back to strike the girl. The child called for help. "Mama, Mama!" Lad would not let that snake hurt the child. He threw his body mightily across hers and met the reptile head on. The copperhead struck. Its fangs sank deep into Lad's muzzle, or in his nose, and delivered their poison. The pain was terrible, but Lad made no sound. Quickly, Lad turned to the child. He grabbed the girl by the shoulder with his jaws and dragged her farther from the snake. Then he whirled around to face the enemy again. Lad charged at the coiled snake. The copperhead was ready and struck once more. This time, its fangs found Lad's jaw. The wounded collie did not stop. He wrestled and fought with the snake until at last the snake was dead. The battle was over, but Lad had been bitten twice. Soon the brave dog would feel the deadly poison. He went over and stood by the crying child. He began to lick her face. "No, stop!" The child's mother raced down the hill, screaming at the collie. She had heard the child's cries. She had seen Lad knock the child over and drag her across the grass. The frightened mother was sure Lad was attacking her little girl. Suddenly, Lad felt a terrible blow to his head. The child's mother had hit him with the heavy hand of her sunshade, her umbrella. The frantic mother was protecting her child. "No, Mama, don't!" the child begged. "Mama, he kept the snake away!" The child cried and pleaded, but the mother hit Lad again. The child had to stop the beating. She had to save Lad. Somehow she pulled herself to her feet and took a few awkward steps. "Mama, stop, oh please," she cried, grabbing her mother's skirt. The mother stared at her sobbing child and let the sunshade fall to the ground. Her child had walked. The woman could not believe her eyes. The master arrived just in time to see the miracle happen. The mother wept. She had thought her daughter would never walk again. The child's illness had not injured her spine. It had only sapped her strength. A shock had brought back some of the power the girl had lost. The master felt joyful for the child. "Tell us what happened," he urged. "What about Lad?" The child pointed to the dead snake. She told them how Lad had saved her. The mother felt a terrible sadness. She had beaten the dog who had saved her child's life. After Lad fought the snake, he went away and hid. The master looked for him for hours. "Laddie, come! Here, Lad!" he called. The master felt an urge to cry. He knew that Lad had probably been bitten by the snake, maybe more than once. He knew the collie might be very sick from the poison. If Lad were dying, the collie would crawl deep into the woods to die by himself. For the next several days, the child was busy learning to walk again. But she missed Lad all the time. "Where is he?" she wailed. On the fourth day, the master started out for a walk by himself. It was early in the morning. The master's heart was heavy. Lad had always kept him company on his morning walks. On the porch, a strange, lumpy figure lay, curled on the rug. In the dim light, it was hard to see. As the master came out on the porch, the figure stirred. The master walked closer. "It can't be," he whispered. Then the caked and filthy animal lifted his poor head. The master suddenly sat on the floor close to the grimy creature. He caught him in his arms. "Lad, oh laddie, old friend," he sputtered, half crying. "You're alive, you're alive." Lad's body was thin. His head was swollen. But the worst of the swelling seemed to be over. And from spine to toe, from nose to tail, Lad was a mess of dried mud. Later on, he wanted to know how Lad had survived. Everyone wanted to know how Lad had survived. The master said Lad probably knew that he would die from the snake bite. But part of Lad's brain told him there was a way to help himself. He could go to the marsh and bury himself in the mud. The mud would pull the poison from his body. And the long, slow mud bath worked. He came out of the marsh, a little thin and shaky, said the master, but he came out alive. That's what matters. Our Lad is very much alive. God has given animals incredible instinct, hasn't he? They know exactly what to do. And this was a true story about what really happened to a little girl and a wonderful dog.